Good evening, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen in the gallery. Could you please be seated while Deputy Mayor Adam Hort delivers the blessing? Thank you.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us all here safely today. I ask that you bless this city, its staff and our residents. Please give us wisdom while we make important decisions for our city and its residents. In your name, amen.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Now invite Councillor Patterson to deliver the acknowledgement to country. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nulla Karich Noongar Mort, Kayan Karak Nija Budja. I'd like to acknowledge we're meeting on the land of the Whadjuk Noongar people and pay our respects to elders past and present.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. It is now 7 p.m. and I declare the meeting open. Members of the public are cautioned against taking any action on council decisions on items in which they may have an interest until such time as they've seen a copy of the minutes of the meeting or have been advised in writing by city staff. Record of attendance. Councillor Griffiths has a leave of absence at the moment. So apart from that, we are all here. Are there any disclosures of interest? No, thank you. Announcements by presiding member. Where is this? Find the right page now. Sorry, I should have had this open. Anyway, it was nice to see the City of Gosnells mentioned in the national local government newspaper this week. So for the RAC Park, for the want of a better name, down there in Gosnells. So yeah, good to see that we've got some recognition across Australia with that one. Also, as you all know, the nominations for the candidates for local government elections closed last Thursday. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to wish everyone that has nominated for council the best of luck on behalf of the councillors and myself. So good luck to you all. Thank you. That is all from me. Moving on to reports from delegates. Are there any? Councillor Good, thank you.
Mayor Lyons, I want to inform you that on the 23rd of August, Councillor McDonald and I attended the zone meeting on behalf of the City of Gosnells. The City of South Perth was the host, and at the zone meeting, fellow councillors, two motions were actually passed. One of them was to do with the local emergency management arrangements. The state government to fund the improvement plan endorsed by the State Emergency Management Committee. Councillors, the key points were about connectivity of the local government processes and resource sharing across the sector. One of the key points that was raised, that I raised actually at the meeting, was the fact that under emergency management, you can typically think of classically a fire, but it could be anything where they just don't happen within your boundaries. They can cross boundaries no matter where they are, and hence you often have resources sharing. In other words, a higher authority may have to overrule our local staff to do something planning-wise. And it was all about greater cohesion in the plan, so that DFES and other organisations can manage the risk appropriately. We also talked about the fact that we have a local emergency management committee meeting every 3 months, I think it is, and sometimes you think, well, who's coordinating this? So this is a review, and the state government agreed to implement this plan that's been endorsed by the State Emergency Management Committee. That was motion one, so the whole zone passed that. The second one, another interesting one, because it was about the advocacy position on roadworks during a total fire ban. What's interesting about this one is that, oh, by the way, it's all supported, fully carried. What's interesting is the fact that there's still a lot of red tape when you're doing a fire ban. And one of the best examples is actually the suburb of Canning Vale in our city, because Canning Vale is basically half Canning, city of, and half Gosnells. Well, the city of Canning's rules are different to our rules for a total fire ban. So we had to make sure they understood that it's not always easy when we can't do certain things in the city of Gosnells, of parts of Canning Vale, but they can. So it's an example of one suburb split into two, literally. But that was supported in terms of the roadworks during a fire ban, because certain roadworks you can't do if it's a total fire ban. But my point being is some roadworks in the city of Canning, part of Canning Vale, you like that, Canning part of Canning Vale, they can do. I know the C's are there, but you get the idea. Anyway, it was passed, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Councillor McDonald? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Representing the City of Gosnells, it was my pleasure last week to attend the 2023 National Local Roads Transport and Infrastructure Congress, hosted by the Australian Local Government Association, during which speakers included the Federal Assistant Minister for Infrastructure, the Shadow Minister for Local Government. Broadly, the conference covered themes in road management, waste management, community infrastructure and affordable housing. A major focus of the event was discussion around sustainable road funding model for local government to assist in road management through black spot identification, maintenance and overall safety of road networks, noting that local people most often and sadly die on local roads. A theme encouraged local government to aggressively lobby state governments to form positive and proactive education partnerships. It was noted that the Commonwealth Government drew a 40% fuel excise, while 80% of roads across the country are managed by local government. Presenters strongly urged that local government should be arguing for a greater share of the fuel excise to facilitate much needed road repair and construction. Conference heard that artificial intelligence such as GoPros, etc. were now a prominent feature in road maintenance and management, with an array of uses including measuring road damage and also at intersections to predict road crashes. It was also suggested that council roads might well seek reclassification of some of its primary arterial roads due to significantly increased traffic volume, and encourage councils to lobby state government where applicable. Contributions made by other councils included a different approach to tendering for capital works, as they encountered problems such as lack of tenderers, reduced competition, technically deficient tenderers and contractors taking advantage of industry shortages by submitting overpriced tenders. Goulburn Shire in particular explained how this council opted for an all-encompassing capital works tendering process to the value of $66 million, and whilst it was risky, this strategy had proven to be very successful. It was also mentioned that the Federal Roads to Recovery program is now in its last year, and councils are encouraged to expend any funding allocation it has left, otherwise it will be too late once it expires at the end of 2023. The conference noted that wasted food amounted, on waste management, noted that waste food amounted to 300 kilos per person per year in Australia, and promoted a theme of FOGO participation. A percentage of FOGO take-up by councils across Australia showed that in Western Australia only 11% of councils were on board. A presentation was given by a private organisation known as Soil Co, who promoted organics recycling through composting, and the New South Wales Government have mandated to achieve 100% FOGO by 2030. Just in regard to community infrastructure and affordable housing, the conference heard about new federal government community infrastructure grants for growing regions, them being regional, rural and remote, and for thriving suburbs being urban, suburban and peri-urban. Grants for thriving suburbs are competitive, with $200 million available over 2 years, commencing in 2024. Funding must be put toward the construction or upgrade of community infrastructure and contribute to socio-economic outcomes inside greater capital cities, with applications expected to open late 2023. Guidelines are expected to be released in November 2023. Conference discussed how rental stress rates have increased 31% over the last 3 years, while national housing prices have increased by 34%. Commonwealth Government's National Housing Finance and Investment Corporation provides long-term and low-cost finance and capability building assistance to registered community housing providers to support the provision of more social and affordable housing. It lends, invests and provides grants to help finance the critical infrastructure needed to unlock and accelerate new housing supply. The federal government's proposed $10 billion Housing Australia Future Fund was also mentioned, and since last week at my attendance at the conference, legislation gained support from the minor parties to pass through Senate just I think it was yesterday or the day before. These national aspirations neatly align with the City of Gosnells' already draft position statement addressing homelessness and increasing the supply of affordable housing by seeking to, A, have the state government expedite a decision on the city's proposal to undertake a residential subdivision at Hester Park in Langford, which would include land suitable for affordable housing. B, develop land owned by the Department of Housing in Corfu Way, Maddington, which is close to the Maddington train station and a district activity centre for affordable housing as a matter of urgency. And C, have the Department of Housing construct affordable housing on other vacant state government land within the city. The draft position statement demonstrates just how astute, intuitive and contemporary our city staff are, and I congratulate them and look forward to the adoption in the near future of that position statement. The National Growth Areas Alliance advocates at the federal government level for stronger focus on the needs of Australia's fast-growing outer suburbs, which is home to more than 5 million people. The Alliance's member councils are calling for a dedicated funding for critical infrastructure and services for outer growth areas, and for all levels of government to commit to assisting outer metropolitan growth areas reach their full potential. The city of Gosnells is a suburb that has been categorised as a growth area. It was suggested that local government can assist with enabling infrastructure and timely approvals. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Can I just ask, did NGAA present at that conference you're at, or National? Yeah.
Yes, I believe I did.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you. Any further reports from delegates? No? Oh, sorry, Councillor Betts, thank you.
I neglected to respond on the August the 23rd. I attended the Armidale Gosnells Land Care group on behalf of the city, and the group is humming. It's all working really well. They're doing their good work. But one of the interesting things that in this day and age, we're all talking about recycling, and with all the planting that they're doing, the problem is that the nurseries are no longer taking back the pots or the tube stock or the trays they come in, because apparently it's cheaper to buy new ones than to pay staff to clean up the old ones. So that's creating a waste issue that they're trying to address and trying to find new ways of dealing with that. And there was some distress caused to some of the, without saying too much about the Rivers grant that was in the media, which involved the Armidale Gosnells Land Care people to some extent. But hopefully that can all settle down and things go normal. But that did cause them quite some personal distress, because some people felt unfairly represented, I guess. But they're working well and continue to do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Betts. Moving on to question time. We'll move on to question times for the public and receiving of public statements. The first question is from Mr Ken Ashwin from 40 Forest Crescent in Thornley, and the subject is election signage. Mr Ashwin, if you'd like to ask your question, thank you.
Yes, no phones this time. I'm seeking clarification as to why the information on the election signage fact sheet as at September 2019, which was what I assessed recently through the council website, showing that the city will permit signs of up to 0.25 square metres, has now changed on the election signage fact sheet distributed to candidates on Thursday the 7th September to up to 0.75 square metres. When was this changed?
Thank you for your question. I'll ask Acting CEO Director Brad Brook to answer your question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The requirements for size of electoral signs comes from Council's Thoroughfares and Public Places local law. So as at 2019, that local law specified that the size of a sign could be 0.25 of a square metre. That local law was reviewed in 2021, actually came into effect at the end of September 2021, but as we were in the election period at that time, we left the rules as 0.25 of a square metre. When we did the review, we increased the size of the signs to 0.75 of a square metre. So that is now the current sign, size of a sign that people can have. Now, I did speak to Mr Ashwin earlier today, and the election fact sheet was updated in the lead up to this election. So, Mr Ashwin obviously accessed the fact sheet as it existed early in August, I understand, which did have the 0.25 of a square metre provision in there around election signs. And when we distributed new information to the candidates at the close of nominations, when we did the ballot draw, the fact sheet had 0.75 of a square metre as the size of election signs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Ashwin. Question from Mrs Tracy O'Neill from 217 Kemwick Road, and the subject is parks and gardens. Thank you.
I recently questioned the City of Gosnells about maintenance at Harmony Fields and was told a slash and drop approach was used as the area is unirrigated as well as uneven. This is a really great facility that remains underutilised due to lack of grass maintenance. Can the slash and drop be re-evaluated so the community can get greater use of this facility?
Thank you for your question. I'll ask Director of Infrastructure, Mr Glover, to answer your question.
Through you, Madam Mayor. With respect to Harmony Field, so the city has a star rating for service levels across all of its parks. Star rating goes from a 1-star to a 5-star, with the 5-star being the better, and that's for regional passive and active parks, so the very, very large ones. And the 1-star is the lowest rating, which is a slash and drop of a dry, grassed paddock, I suppose, is probably the best way of putting those types of parks. In terms of Harmony Fields, there are actually 2 service levels that cover that entire site. We obviously had the ovals, and the ovals are serviced at the 5-star rating. So that includes total turf service, mowing, fertilising, coring, etc. But with respect to the balance of what was the old golf course, that still remains as a 1-star rating and a slash and drop. Now that may potentially change into the future if the city, if the council is of a mind that we do some improvements. But one of the issues we do have at that site is we are at the absolute limit of our water resource on that site. The groundwater in that part of the city is actually quite poor. So in terms of being able to irrigate it and maintain a turf of any form, we don't have the water to do that, but I'm sure the council at some point in time will ask us to do something different on that site in the future, but as it stands at the moment, that's its rating.
Thank you, Director Glover. Your next question, please.
There is an opinion among the community that other suburbs like Southern River and Canning Vale receive more parks and verge maintenance than Kenwick and Maddington. Would that be reflected in the current maintenance schedules?
Thank you. I'll ask Director Glover again to respond to your question.
Through you, Madam Mayor. In terms of parks maintenance, the city has parks of all star classifications across the city, between the 1 and 5 stars. In terms of the passives, they're mainly 1 through to 4. The city had recognised a number of years ago that there was a disparity in the number of the higher rating parks to the west versus the east. And over those years, we have actually redeveloped 10 parks to the east of the city, either a 3 or 4 star rating. And we actually now believe that we've actually got a good balance in terms of the quality of the parks that are presented, especially with respect to the amount of water that we actually have available to irrigate them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs O'Neill.
Madam Mayor, can I just real quick clarify? Is that saying that there's about the same amount of maintenance happening in the suburbs now?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Sorry. So the city split into 4 sectors, basically northwest, northeast, southwest and southeast. They're about the same size and have roughly the same amount of parks in them. So across the entire city, there's actually a very similar distribution of parks in terms of what's provided to the community. And I think we have very few parks that are in excess of a 400-metre walking distance from any residents within the city.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Moving on, we have a public statement here from Stephanie Sanger from 7 Swanley Street in Gosnells, speaking to item number 13 on page 23 for the fence on the verge at 7 Swanley Street, Gosnells. Thank you very much.
Thank
Stephanie.
you. Good evening, everyone. We appreciate the time and the opportunity to speak on this issue again. The issue being the encroachment of fence onto Crown land at 7 Swanley Street in Gosnells. To begin, we wish to refresh your memory and go back to our original public statement on the 11th of May in 2021, in which we extended our concern and disapproval of the City of Gosnells expecting us to remove our boundary fence and bring it in towards the dwelling by roughly 3 metres, in which we fully disagree to, as our main point of activity is the front yard. Those whom have driven past our property on the corner of Swanley Street and Rose Kelly Road will understand the huge loss of land and the mammoth task of removing beautiful trees along our fence line, in which one large palm has been in situ for over 30 plus years. Not only that, the biggest issue and the one that causes so much upset to our family is the loss of our front yard. The place we spend all of our time, as our backyard is quite small, so many hours of kick to kick with our footy mad 6-year-old son. It will mean the removal of the playground we as a family created during COVID, and the removal of our veggie patch, which our daughter loves to tinker around in, and just beautiful memories we already hold in our front garden. Not only a loss of play area, but this will also cause huge problems when it comes to vehicle access at our property. We won't have any dedicated space to park our vehicles, another cost that we may have to endure to change the layout and allow spaces to park our cars. Ava and Mason, our children, have heard conversations we've had this past week and are quite upset that the front yard may be ruined. We've promised them that this may not be the case and really hope that we can keep the promise to the kids. Can I also just state that this situation has not been picked up by multiple previous owners, nor the City of Gosnells, until back in 2020. The original asbestos fence was erected in the 1980s. We have statutory declarations to confirm that the fence has been in its current position for over 40 years. We only replaced the asbestos fence once it was blown down in a storm. We now wish to make a plea to all councillors in agreeing that the fence be left in its current situation, and we really wish to be kept informed of all discussions that may relate to our property, as we really don't wish to be caught by surprise again. To finalise, we wish to obtain any official documentation from the City of Gosnells to confirm the decision stating the finalisation of this matter once a verdict has been made. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight again, and we really do appreciate all of your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the confirmation of minutes. Can I get a mover? Councillor Betts to move that, Councillor Adams to second that. Are there any questions on this? Councillors, will you please cast your vote? Why can't I see? Can everybody see the voting thing? No, I'm glad I'm not the only one. We can't see the... Can I get a show of hands, everyone? Thank you, that has been carried. Maybe we'll get the voting thing for the next one. Receiving of petitions and presentations. Councillor Baines, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a petition that requests to close Waratah Court in Maddington to prevent motorcycle access, and it is signed by 3 contributors. So in response to the petition, I ask that the council may resolve that the petition be received and a report prepared for council.
To second that, councillors, if you please cast your vote. Oh, yep. Thank you, that has been carried. Unanimously for the record. Any further? Councillor Deputy Mayor Hort, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also have a petition here, 426 signatures. We, the undersigned electors of the City of Gosnells, request traffic lights at the intersection of Burslem Drive and Atfield Street, Maddington, that will support all movements and will include green man pedestrian crossings as at most traffic lights for the following reasons. There have been several serious accidents at the intersection recently, including a local resident on a gopher was hit by a car when attempting to cross the road at the roundabout, a car speeding up the wrong side of the road, hitting the roundabout and running into the Chinese restaurant, a bus getting stuck on the roundabout after losing control, and countless near-miss accidents involving pedestrians. There is a significant and growing population of elderly and disabled pedestrians using this intersection, particularly to use the shopping centre. Vehicle traffic is becoming busier from all directions, and speeding is an increasing issue, and the pedestrians are unable to cross the road quickly enough. The underpass is simply too far away for most residents. The initiator of the petition is Dr. Lisa Barnard, and can be contacted at the address on the petition. And so my request is that the petition be received and a report prepared for council, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Happy to second that. Is there, will councillors please cast your vote? No, show of hands again. Thank you. Thank you. That has been passed. Applications for leave of absence. Are there any? No, thank you. There are no questions of which due notice has been given. I will bring forward item number 13.5.4, the fence on verge at 7 Swanley Street, Gosnells. Can I get a mover for that? Councillor Patterson's happy to move that. Councillor Zhang is happy to second that. Councillor Patterson, Councillor Zhang, any debate? Deputy Mayor Hort, and followed by... Yep.
Feels like yesterday, but it's been 2 years since we considered this item, and it's good to see a practical approach come back from the city. We know it's safe. We know it's in the best interests of these residents who've owned this property for quite a while now. No one's at risk. I think this is the best approach, and I thank the city staff for their pragmatic approach. Well done.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hort. Councillor Dewhurst, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to echo the thoughts of the Deputy Mayor. I've gone out and had a look at it. I was a weird fella out the front that was walking around the corner and around the corner again, and I'm not sure if they were home, but if the kids would have pointed at me and said stranger danger, I think, you know. Look, it's a great result. The only thing that disappoints me is that the stress that this family has been through, and I was very surprised it's been 2 years. I thought it was just like 6-8 months ago, but it's not. So the stress this family must have had, I know how I would have felt if I was going to lose some of the land that I thought that was mine. And I was really concerned, and obviously it has over the past 2 years. It's been caught up in probably a bit of red tape, bureaucracy between state and local government, and I just like to ask that we, in future, when it comes to, you know, the fair go, the pub test, whatever, we look at it a bit quicker than over the 2 year period. That's all. But I like to support the recommendation as it is.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Any further? No, councillors, if you could please cast your vote. Thank you. Thank you. That has been carried. You are welcome to leave, or you may stay for the rest of the meeting. That's up to you. Yep, no worries. Thank you. Okay, we'll move back to item number 13.2.1, the annual review of development contribution plan reports. Can I get a mover? Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Adams. Councillor Patterson, do you have any debate or questions? Councillor Adams? No, anybody else? No, thank you. If you could please cast your vote. Thank you, that has been carried. Moving on to item number 13.3.1, the report on the petition for the request for higher walls along Rantford Road as part of the new bus lane project. Can I get a mover? Councillor Dewhurst, seconded by Councillor Williamson. Councillor Dewhurst, thank you.
Just very quickly, I think this is a great result. I honestly didn't think that we're going to be able to assist the residents in reducing this noise, and I've got to tap my hat off to the council, to the engineering that's going to go into this. Hopefully, if it's approved tonight, the engineering's got into it will resolve some of their issues. So, yeah, good work.
Thank you. Councillor Williamson, thank you.
Thank you. I fully support the staff recommendation as it is. I think the residents, although there was consultation, they wouldn't have realised the impact of the trees once they were removed. I drive along that road all the time, and it has opened up that area. So I think to have that extra height on the fence will give the residents some more comfort in their backyard or front yards if they face it. So I fully support the extra expenditure on fencing. Thank you.
Question for Director Glover, in that the staff recommendation that is subject to the initial support for the project for the variation from the MMRG. I wonder, Mr Glover, if you could tell me and the rest of us what likelihood is it they will support that extra funding for that fencing height?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it is actually quite likely that they will, because the legislation changed between when this project was originally proposed to MRRG and the costings were put together versus when we actually got to the point of construction. In the past, they've actually supported every one of our requests that have been similar to this.
My follow-on question is that when you write to them to let them know that it's subject to the MRRG approval, you will be writing to each one of the petitioners to let them know that it is subject to that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we will be, and also we did receive some requests from people who weren't part of the petition, similar issues, and we also noted there was 3 properties we heard nothing from that are also affected, and we'll be writing to all of them.
Okay. Director, is there any Deputy Mayor Hort? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know there's always a bit of argy-bargy from the different spheres of government, but it's just nice to see this coming together, both state and local government contributing to helping these people, essentially our residents, keep the amenity that they already enjoy. So well done to the staff for coming up with this, again, another practical solution.
Councillor Betts.
Just speaking in support of the motion, I remember when I was a state member of parliament, the traffic lights on Campbell Road, Ranford Road there were installed. The residents on the corner were very concerned about the people sitting in the bus being able to look into their backyard. So at that time, nothing was forthcoming, but I think the residents along there will certainly appreciate it, and it's been a long-standing issue, and with the bus lane now just being that much closer, I think it's certainly appropriate expenditure of funds, as I think we're going to contribute 1/3 and the state government 2/3. I think that's a reasonable outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Betts. Any further on this item? No. Councillors, if you please cast your vote. Thank you. That has been carried. Moving on to item number 13.4.1, the Community Funding Program for 22-23. Can I get a mover? Councillor Adams to move that. Councillor Dewhurst to second that. Councillor Adams? Councillor Dewhurst? Anybody else? No. I think we should mention the record amount of money that we've given back to the community on this item, which is absolutely fantastic. And looking through the appendix, how many people we've supported to go overseas, national and state through the funding is awesome. So really good to see all the not-for-profits doing well out of our grant expenditure. So I think somewhere here it was like 247,000 back to the community. Is that about right? I think that's about right, yeah. So anyway, well done to the council on allowing that to happen. So anything further? No? Councillors, please cast your vote. Thank you. That has been carried. Moving on to item 13.5.1, the budget variation for the reimbursement of developer for the completion of common infrastructure works in Southern River, Precinct 3, developer contribution area. Can I get a mover for this, please? Councillor McDonald to move this, Councillor Baines to second that. Thank you. Any debate? Councillor McDonald, Councillor Baines? No? Anyone else? No? Thank you. Please cast your vote. Thank you. That has been carried. Moving on to 13.5.2, the tender for 08-2023 civil construction of Southern River Business Park. Can I get a mover for this, please? Deputy Mayor Hort, seconded by Councillor Zhang. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Zhang, anybody? Councillor Dewhurst, thank you.
Just a question, how normal is it for councillors to actually do this sort of stuff by themselves, this kind of work?
I think our acting CEO might like to answer that, would you?
Why not, Madam Mayor?
Really, I'd say.
I'm not aware of too many other local governments taking on these sorts of projects. I think Gosnells has probably led the way in this type of work with Robinson Park and now the Southern River Business Park.
Councillor Dewhurst.
Okay, so I was being facetious in my question because I already knew the answer. There's not many local governments at all do this kind of stuff, and we do it very well. And let's just hope the government can actually give us a crack at, I can't think of the park, Hester Park. At Hester Park will be absolutely wonderful. We can do great stuff. So let's hope they give us that opportunity.
Thank you. Sorry, I'll just add into that it's fantastic to know that we've only got 3 blocks left for sale out there. Two. There's been an update, so one more is gone, so we've just 2 left. And once all this is done, all this will go a significant way to helping us do our Sutherlands Park upgrades. So fantastic to see that happen. Well done to all. Councillor Good. Hope I didn't steal your words then.
No, but I echo your comments, Madam Mayor, and endorse what Councillor Dewhurst has been saying, but sometimes it's good to put a number on it, but to think that $21 million is a fabulous spend, and the fact that we are getting a loan facility of $15,380,000, this is a magnificent project, and just to have it done, and as the Director of Infrastructure has just indicated, only 2 lots left to go, this is a major boost. So when it's done, it'll be fantastic and the future employment and prospects. So I'm glad you spoke about it, Councillor Dewhurst, because yeah, it's significant. It's just big. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Any further debate or questions on this item? No. Councillors, please cast your vote. Thank you. That has been carried. Moving on to the tender 09/2023 disposal of green waste. Can I get a mover? Councillor Williamson, seconded by Councillor Deputy Mayor Hort. Thank you. Councillor Williamson? Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to congratulate the staff on taking into account the operational costs as well. It's good to see that the tender not only considered the external costs, but what it would cost for us to deliver the waste to the facilities and the travel distance, and the added bonus of doing that is reducing our emissions as well. So we get the environmental as well as financial benefits for our city. So I think this is a really great process and I congratulate the staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. A bit further, I just, Director Glover, I might call upon you to answer a question about, I quite often, as do other councillors, receive comment or questions from the community about what we do with our mulch and could they potentially have any. And I wondered, I know that we're picking some of it up and we use what we do pick up from our own trees that we fell, but could you tell us a little bit more about what's happening going forward with that space, please?
Through Madam Mayor, pleasure to respond to that. So currently the city has 2 streams of green waste. The bulk collection from the verge, which is generally a contaminated product, with other waste mixed amongst it, unfortunately. And then there's the pruning of our own tree stock through our operations, which is almost invariably clean. So in terms of the contaminated waste, we deliver that to a green waste receival company, which is the purpose of this tender. And they generally decontaminate that waste and then on-sell it to compost and soil companies who then turn it into composts and such like. The clean green waste is stockpiled by the city. It's about 10 cubic metres per year, at roughly half of the mulch requirement that we have to provide mulch to our parks and our median islands and around the city. We create mulch ourselves, we tub grind it, and we do that probably 3 or 4 times a year at 2 sites across the city and then distribute it around the city. There is now actually likely to be a 3rd stream coming on soon, which will be the green waste that we are looking to collect at the yet-to-be-built Community Recycling and Education Centre. This green waste is anticipated to have low contamination because it'll be coming directly from the homes in 6x4 trailers, and it could be used for compost products for city purposes. The city's been talking to a Southern Suburbs company which accepts green waste and processes into compost on site. This company would potentially provide the processing service subject to satisfying procurement regulations, but also if the council was of a mind to direct that material to be used as potentially back to community, then that's something I'm sure that we'd be able to do.
Thank you, Director. I guess we will wait and see how that pans out. So any further questions or debate on this item? No? Councillors, will you please cast your vote? Thank you. Thank you, that has been carried. We've dealt with 13.5.4, so we move on to 13.5.4, the wards and representations outcome of community consultation. I'm going to move this as two separate recommendations, so can I get a mover, please, for recommendation 1? Councillor McDonald's happy to move that. Deputy Mayor Hort to second that. Councillor McDonald, would you like to speak to?
Yes, may I remain seated if that's okay?
Yes, you can remain seated, Councillor McDonald, with your...
So what I have to say, Mayor, is extends into recommendation 2. Is that permissible? Yep. So whilst I support receipt of the consultation results, I don't support council undertaking further work to determine the number of wards. Statistically and anecdotally, for populations under 1,000, a minimum ratio of 30%, 300 individuals, response is advisable to ensure representativeness of the sample. For larger populations, such as a population of 10,000, a comparatively small minimum ratio of 10%, 1,000 of individuals is required to ensure representativeness of the sample. In this example, and after a 3-month-long community consultation, a minuscule 125 responses were received from a population of 132,000 and represents approximately 0.001%. This suggests to me 3 things. Firstly, such a small response cannot be considered accurate and reliable from which a dependable conclusion can be drawn. Secondly, it indicates City of Gosnells residents are predominantly ambivalent when it comes to a preference for either single or multiple wards. And lastly, such an indication from the wider community would translate to opposition for council to expend any further time, effort or money exploring the subject. So given the catalyst for this review was based solely on the time elapsed since the last review, and there is no legislative obligation or imperative to conduct a review, and there was zero incitement from the community to conduct a review, I'm therefore not supportive of further work be undertaken by council staff.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Deputy Mayor Hort.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let's do a quick bit of research. Agreed. We can't reach statistical significance through this community feedback. It's a small number, but we've got to work with what we've got. What we are in the City of Gosnells is an outlier. We're an outlier, and the last I checked, there were only 3 local governments that didn't have wards. And that doesn't mean that by being an outlier we're doing the wrong thing. By all means, we could be the leaders. We could be demonstrating what would work for other local governments, but certainly what is working for us here in the City of Gosnells. But what you've got to do when you're an outlier, and I say this at work, I say this wherever I am, is you need to have awareness of what the benefits are of being the outlier and what the costs are as well. What are the risks? What are the benefits? What's working and what's not? And what we don't know is what we don't know. And so I see our primary role, and I assume the rest of the council would agree, is to represent the community. Now, we've spent $55,000, I think it was, on seeing if we should do hydrogen in this city. We spend thousands upon thousands of dollars on consultation for a variety of other mechanisms, all warranted. This is $30,000 to look at, can we do our core business better? Should we remain an outlier, or should we consider the alternatives? And I think exactly where this needs to go is we need to look at the options that are available. So if you look at the City of Gosnells website, the Facebook, for example, when they were sharing, should we be wards, shouldn't we be wards? The number one question I saw on there in the comments is, how on earth do I answer this consultation? I don't know what it would look like with wards. And I had a few people say, I don't really understand what this is about. And I'll take full credit for that. I think as a council we saw those questions before they went out, but I don't think I fully anticipated how little people would understand about wards. And so why complete a survey if you don't really understand what you're being asked? So I think there's a big unknown there. I think we have an opportunity to look at how we can do our core business better, and I think we really need to consider it. All the ducks are in line. It's part of the budget. Let's have this work. Let's consider what our options are and then make that decision. I'm not particularly pro-wards. I'm not particularly against them. I can see the pros and cons of both, and every day I fluctuate. But I think I would like to have all the available information in front of me before I make this decision. That's all I've got, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Williamson, then Councillor Dewhurst, thank you. Then Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say that I absolutely agree with Councillor Hort on we should be looking at ourselves. We should be looking at how can we do our job better. So I will be receiving this report, but the survey results don't support moving to the next step of actually engaging a consultant to work out which wards, which councillors are going to go in. That's what's in the budget. The $30,000 is planned to spend on the division of wards and who's going to go into what area. And that's something that I can't see us moving forward at that stage before we actually have that discussion between councillors and executives to look at what are all of our available options. Can we achieve what the community expects is a downside of not having multiple wards? Can we overcome that through some other way, through other mechanisms that aren't going to have ongoing costs? We're a growth council, we do need to look at all the options. I don't think tonight the survey results say, yes, we have a majority, yes, take the next step and actually draw up the wards for us. I don't think we're at that stage. I think we need to take it a step back, have more discussions, look at what we're doing and see another way to do it. So I'm happy to support the receiving of the consultation, and I do think further discussions need to happen, but I don't think I'll be supporting recommendation 2, and in fact I'll have a procedural motion to defer that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Dewhurst was next, then Councillor Betts, then Councillor Good. Do you have a
Point of order.
Point of order? Thank you.
Just a simple point of order, just to be sure.
Oh, sorry, no, sit down. You've got a bad back. There's a couple of bad backs here at the minute.
We are just doing one of two at the moment, aren't we?
Yes.
Which is simply the council receives results. So I'm trying to work out, are we debating option 2 or just doing
yes,
one?
but you are open to debate within recommendation 1 as well. So
Okay, so we're doing both at the same time.
No, we're not doing both at the same time. We're doing recommendation 1 at the moment.
Which is just to receive
Yes.
report.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Dewhurst.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Yep. Thank you.
I thought the explanation to Councillor McDonald is that we could speak about both items early on. Yep. Yeah. Just to be clear. Yep.
It's still open for debate on the wards as such as well, so there is opportunity to talk about wards within that recommendation 1, whether you're receiving the report or not. So, Councillor Dewhurst, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I feel 125 responses is actually quite good compared to the responses we normally get when we put out questions to the public. So, I mean, what are our normal response numbers of when we put out these things to the public? I'm sorry to put you on the spot there, but I know we get very low numbers.
Okay. Acting CEO, Mr Bradbrook will be able to answer that that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's probably fair to say we don't generally get a great response to some of the consultation that we undertake. I think I was asked earlier about the strategic community plan, where I think we had maybe 200 or 300 responses to the last round of consultation, but certainly the round prior to that was under 20. So they're not things that we do seem to get great engagement on.
Thank you.
So in fact, Madam Mayor, this results of 125 people could be in our top 90% of responses for the city, so we've got to look at it both ways. But in regards to the ward system, I'm still undecided, and I'd like to hear further about it, but I don't think we can look at this result in isolation, because I think it's actually a probably good result from our community of what they normally would put the effort into to reply to these things. So, like I said, it's probably one of our highest ones that we've had for a long time, Madam Mayor. So I don't think we can look at the numbers, particularly when we've only got 72 or 75,000 voters in the city.
Councillor Betts, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I certainly speak in support of staff recommendation 1 to receive the results of the consultation report. There's no question about that. That makes sense. I think we've discussed the pros and cons of wards. I think staff have put a paper together, was it last year or the year before, I can't remember. The pros and the cons, and it's one of those things. I can see the advantages of ward system in the sense that a person who doesn't have a high profile in the community, they can actually work that much smaller area and make themselves known, door knocking, etc., and gives them an opportunity to actually get elected. The other side, of course, is by not having the wards, it gives the person the opportunity who has a big, broad network to actually be elected. So there's the pros and cons, and I can see both sides of that. And I think the results of the survey or the opportunity for consultation, if it was something that was a really burning issue in the community, I suspect we probably would have had more responses. My guess is that 95% of our ratepayers probably don't even know the difference between wards and not having wards because we haven't had them for so long. So it's just that's just the way it is here in Gosnells, and nobody thinks too much about it. And as long as their parks are looked after and the roads are swept and the rubbish is picked up, everybody's happy with us. So I think, whether we go for wards eventually or not, my concern is that because we're still very much a growth council in the sense that Southern River is still progressing quite significantly, the ward numbers, or the ward boundaries rather, will have to continually be adjusted and the boundaries change so you have the same number, or roughly the same number of voters in each ward. That's going to be an ongoing cost if we do go towards the ward system. And so I think I probably would echo the sentiment of Councillor Williamson that at this point in time, it's probably a little premature to spend money on figuring out how many wards we should have and where the boundaries should be if we're not actually committed to actually moving towards wards. If we were of one mind, or the majority was of the view that we should go towards wards, then by all means let's go for number 2 as well. But until we've made that in principle decision, I kind of think spending 30 grand on trying to draw the boundaries and how many we should have is money that's not that well spent. So I support staff recommendation 1 and wait and see what the procedural motion is for the second one. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just enter into this debate. Just a couple of things to clarify, and I'll ask the Acting CEO, how often should we go forward for wards? How often do you anticipate that we would need to recalibrate the areas of those wards? Is that the right wording?
Madam Mayor, under the Act, you would need to do it at least every 8 years, but one of the key requirements around wards is to make sure that you have consistent councillor to elector ratios across the wards. So I think to be able to maintain that, you're probably going to be looking at least every second election, so every 4 years, needing to make some boundary adjustments to keep the ratios in line.
Follow-up question is, what do you expect that would cost to the city?
Madam Mayor, I don't know that would be an enormous cost. You're probably looking somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 each time you needed to make an adjustment to ward boundaries.
Okay, I just will speak in favour of recommendation 1, and I'll just note that we have already approved the spending of this $30,000 in the budget, so it's not an extra money that we're looking for. We've gone out to consultation with the community. We've asked them what they've thought, and now we've got in favour of wards being looked at further. So I will be hoping that this goes through today, and I'll definitely be supporting recommendation 1 of this agenda item. Any further? No? Councillors, if you could please cast your vote that the council receives the results of consultation in relation to wards and representation as detailed in Appendix 13.5.5A. Thank you, that has been carried. We'll now move on to staff recommendation 2 of 2, that council approve, I'll just read that out for the record, that council approves further work being undertaken to determine its preferred number of wards, ward boundaries and the allocation of councillors to each ward to inform a future decision on whether to shift from the current single ward to a multiple ward structure. Can I get a mover for the recommendation number 2, please? Deputy Mayor Hort, happy to move that. Councillor Patterson to second that. Deputy Mayor Hort, would you like to speak to that item?
Yeah, look, I think I've spoken all my points in the earlier bit because I didn't want to bore you all with two long speeches. But I think what we've done is we've decided we want to take this to consultation. Council endorsed. We've decided we want to put money aside in the budget. Council endorsed. The consultations come back and maybe it's good, maybe it's not, doesn't matter. And that's the only thing that's changed now. That's the only thing that's changed and is impacting this decision from what I can see, that the consultation potentially wasn't strong enough. We wanted to look into this. I think we need to commit to it and get through and do a proper consultation, really see exactly what our city would look like if it was divided up into wards, so we can actually make an educated decision on this. When I look around the city, I mean, Councillor Patterson is retiring at the end of this term. There's a good chance Gosnells will be without a councillor. The suburb of Gosnells, our third biggest from my estimates, could be without a councillor representing that area. I mean, we all represent all areas, but Gosnells won't have one, potentially. Thornley, I think, has 3, could have, you know, if you look at the candidates, there's an overwhelming number that come from Thornley, could have many, many more. Canning Vale's got 1, and from what I've last seen, is the largest suburb in our city. It is disproportionate, and you can't help but when you drive down the road, I use the Snap Send Solve app all the time. I obviously pull over first and then I take my picture. If I'm walking the dogs, I take a picture, and the city must know when I go for a dog walk because you can probably see all the Snap Send Solves that happen. Paul Martin probably knows when I go for a walk because I get all the emails come through to him. I am active in the areas that I'm active. Okay, and I go all around the city, don't get me wrong, but I'm always going to go closer to home. I'm always going to go to that shopping centre and complain about the rubbish at Forest Lake Shopping Centre, worry about the lake near me, worry about my local playground. That's what I do. That's human nature. And if there isn't representation in all the parts of our community, then we're not doing our job properly. And this is the opportunity. This is the opportunity we have. Defer it for 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, whatever you want to do. This conversation will go on forever. The only difference in 6 months is we'll have a new council and a bunch of people have already been elected. Okay, this is the opportunity for us to look at this once and for all, make an educated decision. Like I said, I'm not for it or against it necessarily. Let's see what it looks like, because if it's a really big bunch of wards, maybe it's not going to address these concerns that I have as is. Maybe it will, we don't know. And this is why we need to do the work. I'm obviously for it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I've just, who seconded that, sorry?
Councillor Patterson.
Councillor Patterson, did you want to speak on this item? No, thank you. Councillor Williamson has her hand up. Thank you.
Hi, Madam Mayor. I just want to move a procedural motion to defer, which reads that the item under consideration be deferred for the following reasons. The very low number of responses to the survey suggests that the city's ward structure is not a significant or pressing issue for the vast majority of residents. Considering the City of Gosnells has over 100,000 residents and the 3-month consultation survey that was widely advertised only attracted 125 respondents, of which only 72 individuals supported the change to multiple ward systems, it supports this notion. As such, I find it difficult to rely on these survey results as a representation of residents' and electors' desires for a change to the structure of council. Although $30,000 has been included in the budget to review the ward structure, we as a council still must make responsible financial decisions and not incur unnecessary expenditure. Unless we are committed to moving down the path of multiple wards, I do not believe it is necessary to approve this additional expenditure at this stage. Based on the survey comments, those that support a shift back to multiple wards generally reflect a desire to know which councillor they can contact when they have a concern and who they can speak to about local issues. It may be possible to deal with these challenges without necessarily incurring the expense associated with exploring options for the introduction of a ward system. Reflecting on these comments, I ask for you to support to defer staff recommendation 2 of 2 to a councillor workshop within the next 6 months so we can consider alternatives and the survey results before we commit to spending money exploring what a ward structure might look like when this doesn't seem to be a particularly high priority for the community. I also wanted to address Councillor Hort's comments about having councillors in a local area, and just note that just because we have wards, it doesn't mean you have a councillor that lives in that suburb. It doesn't require that. Anyone across the entire city can nominate into any ward, so it doesn't overcome that problem. I think there are genuine concerns over who to contact, but I don't think the wards is a magical fix. It's something we need to discuss further. And just because something's in the budget, it doesn't mean we close our eyes and just blindly follow it down the path if our community isn't saying, yes, we want you to go ahead with this expenditure right now. So I think to do our due diligence, we need to talk about this further. We need to work out what our options are. So thank you.
Sorry, I'm a bit puzzled.
Can you hear me? There's 7 in favour of deferring it, and so that item is carried as far as deferring it. There are no motions of which previous notice has been given, no urgent business, no confidential matters. I declare the meeting closed at 8:01. Thank you all.